So here is the solution to the problem. Then Isaiah, son of Amoz, sent a message to Hezekiah. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Because you have prayed to me concerning Sennacherib, king of Assyria, this is the word the Lord has spoken. This is what all those prophecies that Isaiah has been speaking all along have been designed to do. Isaiah has been talking and talking and talking and talking for 40 years now. Isaiah's ministry started the year King Uzziah died, and that was in the year 740 BC. This is now almost 40 years later, in 701 BC. So Isaiah has been talking and talking and talking and talking and talking for 40 years now, and it's mostly all this stuff, and it's mostly fallen on deaf ears. But finally, Hezekiah prostrates himself before the Lord and prays to the Lord, and because of that, the Lord gives him this response. The virgin daughter, actually he's talking to the king of Assyria here. This is a message that has been relayed to Hezekiah about what God is saying to the king of Assyria. The virgin daughter of Zion despises and mocks you. The daughter of Jerusalem tosses her head as you flee. Who is it that you have insulted and blasphemed? Against whom have you raised your voice and lifted your eyes in pride? Against the Holy One of Israel. By your messengers you have heaped insults on the Lord, and you have said, with my many chariots I have ascended the heights of the mountains, the utmost heights of Lebanon. I have cut down its tallest cedars, the choicest of its pines. I have reached its remotest heights, the finest of its forests. I have dug wells in foreign lands and drunk the water there. With the soles of my feet I have dried up all the streams of Egypt. This sounds a lot like the language attributed to the king of Babylon, who was actually probably the king of Assyria, in Isaiah 14, about how great he's going to make himself into being. At this point in time, the Assyrians had not yet conquered Egypt. So him talking about boasting about conquering Egypt, that hasn't happened yet. But that's the attitude the king of Assyria has about himself. Have you not heard? Long ago I ordained it. In days of old I planned, this is God speaking to the king of Assyria here. In days of old I planned it. Now I have brought it to pass, that you have turned fortified cities into piles of stone. So he was the one who declared this. He was the one who decreed this. So we've been reading about from Isaiah, Assyria is nothing more than the axe in God's hand. Their people, drained of power, are dismayed and put to shame. They are like plants in the field, like tender green shoots, like grass sprouting up on the roof, scorched before it grows up. That's what the entire book of Isaiah has been about until now. But I know where you stay, and where you come and go, and how you rage against me. Because you rage against me, and because your insolence has reached my ears, I will put my hook in your nose, and my bit in your mouth, and I will make you return by the way you came. The Assyrians, when they would take people away, would put hooks in their cheeks and hooks in their noses, and tug on them with ropes attached to these hooks to drag them along behind them as they carried them away. So that's what God is going to do to them. He's going to put a hook in their face and a bit in their mouth and tug them away and make them go back the way they came. This will be the sign for you, O Hezekiah. This year you will eat what grows by itself, and the second year what springs from that. But in the third year, sow and reap, plant vineyards and eat their fruit. It's going to take that long for the land to replenish itself after this invasion. Once more a remnant of the house of Judah will take root below and bear fruit above. For out of Jerusalem will come a remnant, and out of Mount Zion a band of survivors. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. I'm not sure if this is referring solely to the physical remnant or also to the spiritual remnant. I think it is referring to the physical remnant, definitely. We're talking about literally their survivors. But there could be a meaning of the spiritual remnant too, but I'm not entirely sure about that. Therefore, this is what the Lord says concerning the king of Assyria. He will not enter the city or shoot an arrow here. He will not come before it with shield or build a siege ramp against it. By the way that he came, he will return. He will not enter this city, declares the Lord. I will defend this city and save it, for my sake and for the sake of David my servant. Then the angel of the Lord went out. I don't know if it's that day, the next, I don't know when exactly. When you go between verses 35 and 36, I don't know how much time passes. It could be a day, a week, a month, I just don't know. A year. We saw the king of Assyria apparently retreat to deal with an attack by Pharaoh, king of Egypt, but we didn't get a follow-up on that. You know, I don't know. I just don't know what's going on here in terms of where the king of Assyria is and how he's moving around. But at some point, whether that day or the next day or however long after, in verse 36 it says, Then the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 men in the Assyrian camp. He probably did this via a plague of rats and mice that spread bubonic plague, or some kind of plague amongst them. There is an ancient tradition that the Assyrians were overtaken by a plague brought on by a bunch of field mice when they were fighting the Egyptians. That could be referring to this. I just don't know. Like I said, we don't really know very clearly like where or when all these things are taking place. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, so he didn't die. He was not one of the ones who died. I'm not even sure if he was there. Okay? He may have been separate from the rest of his army when this happened. I don't know. Like I said, he may have gone off somewhere else and the army was in another location. But clearly he didn't die in this plague. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, broke camp and withdrew. He returned to Nineveh and stayed there. Nineveh is now the capital of Assyria. In the days of Jonah, Nineveh was not the capital of Assyria. It was one of its major cities, but it was not its capital. Now it is the capital. One day, while he was worshiping in the temple of his god Nisroch, his sons Adremelech and Sharezer cut him down with the sword, and they escaped the land of Ararat, and Esarhaddon his son succeeded him as king. And that happens 20 years later. Sennacherib is not killed until 681 BC. This invasion happens in 701 BC. So this final judgment against Sennacherib does not occur for 20 years. But the way the text is written makes it sound like it happened right away. But it didn't. There was a 20-year. In fact, he outlives Hezekiah. Hezekiah himself is only going to live to about 686 BC. So Sennacherib outlives Hezekiah by several years. So he did not get his judgment for many years after this attack on his army. But the text is written in such a way to make it sound like he did. That's just how it is. That's just how these prophets speak sometimes. Now, Isaiah could have still been alive and recorded that as a little bit of a postscript, or maybe someone else did afterwards. I'm not sure. Isaiah's career as a prophet started in 740 BC. This was the last event recorded that we can date in his book, which is 681 BC, so almost 60 years later. If he was a man already, and there's no indication that he was not already a grown man, when his ministry started, he would have been in his 80s or 90s by the time he died, if he's the one who recorded this, which is possible. Or it could have been added later by someone who just put that in there to prove that what Isaiah said happened. I don't think there's really any way to be certain about that. Now, this event does not break the power of Assyria, okay? It is a devastating event. It saves Jerusalem. It saves Judah. But this does not end the power of Assyria. Assyria is still going to be the dominant power for many decades to come. This does not break the back of Assyria in terms of reducing them and reducing their empire. They will continue to be the dominant world power in this region of the world for another 80 years or so. And whatever setbacks they experienced here are not going to keep them from being the dominant power in the empire for another 2 generations. Sennacherib didn't go up against Jerusalem and Judah again. But Hezekiah's son, Manasseh, who's a wicked king, will be paying tribute to Assyria. So this is not the end of Assyria as a threat to the world or to Judah. But it does prevent Jerusalem from falling at their hands.